on 8-6 today, solving rational equations and inequalities. So like I said, this ties everything together. So before today, we would have something that looked like this, but we wouldn't have this side, right? Before today, we would have something like this. We would get common denominators, and we would simplify. We'd make it one fraction and shove the fraction together, right? Today, we're going to solve. We're going to find out what x is. We're not simplifying, okay? So there's a difference, right? There's always more than one way to do something. I'm going to show you what I think is worked best for kids in the past, which is just we're going to eliminate the fractions. We're just going to totally get rid of them. It's not the only way to do it. If you don't like it, you can come and see me later, but I find that this is the least confusing way to do it, okay? So a rational equation, to solve it, you can eliminate the fractions, which is what I said we're going to do, solve and check your answers. A rational inequality, I'll show you in a second, but to solve it, you find your excluded values, you solve, you use your test values, that's your number line, okay? And you check the regions, and you use interval notation. I'll show you all that in a second. And then weighted average, for the sake of time, today we're not going to do those questions since your test is on Friday, but we will cover them later. They're still super important. They're still probably on the I-step, I'm guessing. I don't know. But for the sake of Friday, we're not going to cover them today or tomorrow. We're going to wait until after the test. Does that make sense? So we're going to skip those, okay? But we will come back to them, all right? So remind me to record that because I'm not going to think about it. All right, 17. Like I said, we're going to get rid of the fractions, but this whole chapter, what do you do first? Factor first, factor first, factor first. You guys already did. So I'm going to need some more space, so I'm going to go here. When you factored it, we still have 13 over y plus 3 minus 12 over y plus 4 equals 18 over, what did we factor that to be? Y plus 3, y plus 4, or vice versa, right? Doesn't matter. So everybody should be here, okay? So if I were just trying to get rid of the fraction here, what would I multiply by? Y plus 3, right? If I were just trying to get rid of the fraction here, what would I multiply by? Y plus 4. If I were trying to get rid of it here, what would I multiply by? Y plus 3, y plus 4, right? So in algebra, you can do anything you want as long as you do it to everything, as long as you do it to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by y plus 3, y plus 4, because that's what I need. If I just do y plus 3, that doesn't help here. If I just do y plus 4, that doesn't help here. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm going to multiply everything, both sides, by that. So don't write this down just yet. Just watch me if you don't mind. I'm multiplying everything by y plus 3, y plus 4. But for a lot of people, just writing it that way, they kind of forget that it goes to every single piece. So typically what I do is I put a y plus 3, y plus 4 at the top of every numerator, because that's really over a 1, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to do 13, y plus 3, y plus 4, and it's still over the y plus 3. You can start writing now, by the way. Bless you. I'm going to do y plus 3, y plus 4 here, and it's still over the y plus 4. And then the y plus 3, y plus 4, and it's still over the y plus 3, y plus 4. So really understand what I did, because that's the only new thing today. I multiplied everything by the same thing, and what I multiplied by is going to make all of the fractions disappear. Okay? In this class for this year, typically, whatever the one with 2 binomials is going to be these two together. I don't think I've seen a time where it's not. So that's what you're going to multiply by. I don't want you to think that's a rule, by the way, but for this year, I don't think it gets more complicated than that. Do you understand what I wrote here and what I did on each of these is the same? I just find that if you put it in each numerator like this, you're less likely to forget about it. So what cancels here? The y plus 3's. I'm left with 13 parentheses y plus 4. Well, that's a lot prettier, isn't it? What cancels here? Y plus 4. So I'm left with negative 12 parentheses y plus 3. What cancels here? Everything but the 18, right? It should look a lot more doable to you. Does everybody understand what we did? What we just did is the only new thing I'm showing you today. So what you're going to do now is you're going to finish the problem. Everybody find y for me, please. Distribute, find y. Okay. I don't need that. And we just got started on the notes from the ones that I gave you yesterday. Do you know what I mean? Where you already factored it. Okay. So you might be a little bit confused right now, but if you watch the rest of this and then start with us on the next one. You'll be okay. So you're going to get 13y plus 52 minus 12y minus 36 equals 18. And then you solve it any way you want, but you combine like terms from there. So I got y plus 16 equals 18. So what was y? 2. You should get 2. If you don't, make me walk you through it. But everybody should get 2. With not too much brain power, I feel like. This should be kind of easy for you now. Is everybody okay? So here's the thing. We're done, but we're not done, okay? So we have a couple of things that we have to do on every problem. We have to state the excluded values, which is like that quiz that we had a little bit ago. So what's the excluded value here? What is x or y or whatever not allowed to be? -3. What else is it not allowed to be? -4, and then again, -3, -4. I don't need to say that again. So my excluded values are y can't be -3 or -4. Did I get -3 or -4 is my answer? No, so that's probably good, right? But whenever you eliminate fractions, what we did was we multiplied by the LCM. When we multiplied by this, that was multiplying by the LCM. That's what that's called, okay? So when we eliminate fractions, we could have possibly created an extraneous solution. So we have to check that y is really equal to 2. So even though we didn't do anything wrong, we still have to check it anyway, okay? So don't act like checking it's hard. It's not hard. But we kind of can't do it in our head. We really do need to write it down as we go. So if I put 2 back in, I always go back to the original, okay? So that's 13 over what? 5, right? And it's going to be minus 12 over what? 6, which is 2. And I'm seeing if it's equal to 18 over, what was it, 2? So 4 plus 14 plus 12 is what? What did I just say? 4 plus 14 plus 12? 26. 30? Right? Okay. Everybody getting that? So now I'd use a calculator. See if 13 over 5 minus 2 is whatever 18 over 30 is, however you want to do it. See if those are equal. Are they? Yes? So our answer was right. We had to check that though. Had to. Not just like it was a good idea. Do you guys understand that? So here's what I want you to understand. The only thing I showed you that was new was step 1. Everything else was old Algebra 1 review. Yeah, we had to check for excluded values, and yeah, we had to plug it back in, but I don't think anything was too crazy hard. Anybody have a question anywhere? Is anyone struggling with checking it? I know fractions freak people out, but are you okay? Okay. Anyone still need this page? Okay. Did you get it right? Okay. All right, so you already factored that yesterday. So we have 2 over y minus 5 plus y minus 1 over 2y plus 1 equals 2 over, we had 2y plus 1 and y minus 5. Is everybody okay here? All right, so it says solve. So I'm not going to do what I did before today, right? If it didn't say solve, if this wasn't here, I would get common denominators, shove them together, right? But that's not what I'm going to do here. Typically, what I do first, because if not, I forget. I didn't show you the excluded values till the end of the problem because I didn't want to shove too much at you at once. I typically do the excluded values now. If I don't do them now, I forget to do them, okay? You can do it whenever you want, but if I wait till the end, I forget. So what is y not allowed to be? Can't be 5 or -1/2. Does everybody understand it can't be 5 because of this? It can't be -1/2 because of this. And these are the same. I don't need to write it again. So again, you can do that whenever you want, but if I don't do it now, I always forget to do it. Okay? So now, we don't really like fractions. Let's make them go away. If I wanted to make them go away, I would multiply everything by this, right? If I multiply everything by this, don't all the fractions cancel out somehow? So I'm going to put this in the numerator of every problem, okay? So I'm going to make, I need to squeeze this in somehow, but 2y plus 1, y minus 5, 2y plus 1, y minus 5, 2y plus 1, y minus 5. That is the only new thing. Okay? So what cancels in the first problem? The y minus 5, so you're left with 2 parentheses 2y plus 1. What cancels in the second part? 2y plus 1, so you're left with y minus 1, y minus 5. And in the third part, everything but the 2. Is anybody confused by that? That is the only thing that's new. I should be able to go get coffee if I liked it and come back and you'd be done. Okay? I'm not going to, but I should be able to. So what you need to do now is what? Distribute and FOIL. Distribute and FOIL. So just do one step at a time. Go ahead and do the next line for me, and we'll make sure you do that right. Just do the next line. Okay, so you should end up with, what, 4y plus 2 plus y squared minus 6y plus 5 equals 2. Is that what you guys got? Anybody confused? All right, what do we do now? Combine like terms, right? So I've got a y squared. I'm just going to write it down again. I've got a 4y minus a 6y, so negative 2y. A 2 and a 5, so 7, and it's still equal to 2. Again, not the only way to do it. You could do more than that if you want to. Whenever you have y squared, blah, 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 what do you want it equal to? 0. So I'm going to subtract the 2 over because we want the y squared to be a positive. It's easier that way, right? So y squared minus 2y plus 5 equals 0. Is anybody confused? What do we do now? Factor if you can. What multiplies to 5 and adds to negative 2? Nothing. So what do we have to do instead? Quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Quadratic formula. What's a in this problem? 1. What's b? Negative 2. And what's c? 5. Is that coming back to you? You guys okay? So we're going to substitute, right? So x equals, negative b is going to be a positive 2 plus or minus square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5 all over 2 times 1. I know I do that kind of fast, but it's just substitution. Okay, so order of operations is PEMDAS. Technically parentheses come first, but really that means grouping symbols. So our square root is a grouping symbol. So negative 2 squared is 4 minus 20 over 2. Is everybody okay with where we are right now? What's 4 minus 20? Negative 16. What's the square root of 16? 4. So what's the square root of negative 16? 4i. And then you've got your pizza. So, oops, not the I though, sorry. So x is equal to 1 plus or minus 2i. Does that make sense? I mean the answer. Does the answer make sense? Can you have 1 plus or minus 2i in a fraction like that? No? So what's our real answer then? No real solution. You can't put that in a fraction. That doesn't even make sense. Do you see what I'm saying? So for a question like this, it would be no real solution. Ask me a question. Yeah, because you were unable to factor, you had to quadratic. Now, just because we quadratic formulated it does not mean that it was going to be imaginary. It could have been just an irrational number, and that would have been okay. It just meant that you couldn't factor it. So if you can't factor, it's either an irrational weirdo number, which is still fine, or it's imaginary, which in these questions means no real solution. Okay? Anybody confused? All right, it's not too terrible yet, right? All right, next one. 27. Factor first, factor first, factor first. There's nothing to factor, right? What's different about this one? Inequality. So pretend it's an equal sign. Do everything you just did, right? So I'm going to start with x is not allowed to be what? 2 or negative 2, right? Does everybody understand that? Okay. So I'm going to multiply everything by x plus 2, x minus 2, because that's what all the denominators are. Do you guys get that by now? Is anybody confused by that? If after you do this step, the fractions didn't disappear, you messed up. Okay, so just, if the fractions don't disappear, try it again, basically, is what I'm going to say. Okay, so the x plus 2's cancel, so I'm left with x minus 2, x minus 2. The x minus 2's cancel, so I'm left with x plus 2. I'm going to do an equal sign and worry about the inequality later. Okay, the inequality isn't helpful at all until the end. All right, so the x minus 2's cancel, and I'm left with x minus 4, x plus 2. Is anybody confused by that? That is the only new thing that we've done. All right, do the next line. Don't go past that if you can, okay? So just do the next line. Go ahead and FOIL for me. And then just wait, and we'll simplify together. Okay, so we should get x squared minus 4x plus 4 plus x plus 2 equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. Anybody confused there? Okay, now what? Combine like terms, simplify, whatever you got to do. The x squareds are going to cancel out because there's one on each side of the equation, so you could subtract those out, right? I've got negative 4x and x, so that's negative 3x. Done. I've got a 4 and a 2, so it's plus 6. Done. I like to cross them off so I don't forget them. And then the negative 2x minus 8 is still there. So from there, everybody can solve for x. See what x is. And what do you get? Are you guys struggling, or you just need more time, or what? Should be 14. Is that okay? Does anybody need help with that? Are you sure? Okay. So this is not an equal sign, it's an inequality. So we can't just say x is 14, yay, we're done. It doesn't work that way. Okay? So to do the check, we have to do a number line. So our excluded values and the answer we got go on the number line. And you always put them in order, right? So negative 2 is going to come first, and then 2, and then 14. So we have to check here, 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 and here. We have to check all of those regions. Have to. If there's an easier way, I promise I would have shown you. Is everybody okay with where I am right now? You all got 14, you're fine. Okay. So the excluded values go on there, and the answer you got. So this is how we're going to figure out what our inequality is. So that's why I pretend it's an equal sign until the end, because it doesn't really matter until then anyway. So what do you guys want to check over here? Negative 3. Negative 1's on the other side. What do you guys want to check here? I would check 0 because it'll be easier. You don't have to, okay? But I'm going to check 0. What about here? You can pick whatever you want. Just do 3 because that's what I did, so it's going to save me time. Just do 3, okay? But 5's fine. I just didn't do that one, so I don't want to do the math again. And then what about here? 15. Good. You guys get, I don't want to say there's no wrong answer, no offense, but negative 1 would have been wrong in that spot. But you can pick anything you want, okay? So there's a wrong answer, but you can pick anything you want in between here and here, but 0 is pretty easy. So we're going to do negative 3 and 0 together, so you see what I'm saying, and then I'm going to make you try the other two, okay? So let's check negative 3 first. Do you guys care if I erase all of this? Is that okay? Because I need it. Can I erase that, or does it? Ah, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to reset the page. it? Negative 2, 2, and 14. Here, 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 here. All right, so negative 3 is what we're doing first. So what's negative 3 minus 2? Negative 5 over negative 3 plus 2? Negative 1. Two negatives make a positive. Do you see that even the math teacher is not doing it in her head? So do you think maybe you should write it down too? Right? Don't do this in your head. It's too hard. Okay? And then this would be 1 over what? What's negative 3 minus 2? Negative 5. So I'm just going to say 5 minus 1/5. And I'm seeing if that's greater than negative 3 again. So negative 7 over negative 5. Two negatives make a positive. Do you guys get what I'm saying? I'm going to see if the left side is bigger than the right side. What's 5 minus 1/5? 4 and 4/5, right? Is 4 and 4/5 bigger than 1 and 2/5? Is 4 bigger than 1? Okay. So big old check mark. It's okay. Do you guys get that? Okay. And then we're going to check 0. That one's super easy and quick. That's going to be negative 2 over 2, right, which is negative 1. And that's 1 over negative 2. Well, that's negative 1/2. And then is that greater than, two negatives make a positive. Is a negative bigger than a positive? No. Okay, so here's what you're going to do now. Everybody's going to check, we said 3, right? Everybody's going to plug x in as 3 and see what you get. So don't just say yes or no. I want to see like this part to make sure you don't accidentally get the right answer, okay? So everybody check x is 3. When you check x is 3, you end up with, I have 1/5 plus 1 is greater than question mark negative 1. Is that what you have, something like that? Okay. So is a positive bigger than a negative? Yes. If anybody didn't get the 1/5 and the 1, or you're confused about that, stop me. Because I'm trying to see if it's true or false. I don't want to say it's greater than because it might not be. Does that make sense? Okay. No, it's for me to know that it's not necessarily true. I'm just checking to see if it's true. Okay? So now everybody check x is 15. So again, I know it's not super fun with fractions and decimals, but you have a calculator, you're okay. So when you do 15, I ended up with 13 over 17 plus 1 over 13 question mark greater than 11 over 13. That wasn't very easy, so I used my calculator, and I ended up with like 0.8416-ish greater than 0.8461. So is it true or false? 8484, so I don't care. A 1 is not bigger than a 6. False. I'm going to pause there. Ask me a question. Are you sure? Okay. So from here, the whole purpose of doing that was to figure out the inequality. So our answer is saying everything to the left of negative 2 is true, and everything in between 2 and 14 is true. Does that make sense to you? So the answer of 14 is going to have an open circle on it because the question was open. And then the negative 2 and the 2 also have to be open because they were excluded values. Does that make sense? If this had had a straight line here, then the 14 would have been a closed circle. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? okay? But it didn't, so I don't care. So we're going to write it algebra one way first, okay? So I'm going to say x is less than -2, or x is in between 2 and 14. That is the old way that we used to write it. Do you guys understand that graphically that's what we have? If you wanted to see it graphically, that was open, shaded here. That would have been open, open, shaded here. When we do our checks, that's basically what we're trying to see. Okay? So now interval notation. How do I write this? Is it -∞, -2, or is it -2, -infinity? -∞, -2. What's infinity always get? Parentheses. What's the -2 get? Parentheses. Union 2 to 14 is like this, and they both have parentheses. That is your final full credit. I'm done answer. Drop the pencil. Okay? So, I know that that is a lot of stuff, but I want you to understand you already knew all of that stuff except for the first step. You just maybe forgotten it. Okay? Technically, that's all I want to cover today. Those last two questions, like I said, we'll do later because for the sake of time, I don't really feel like we have it. But I had enough questions in the last class that I'd like to do. I'd at least like to get you started on a question on your homework tonight. So if you guys want to go ahead and get out a sheet of paper, even though this is out of order, you could start with this question because I think you'll have the same question as they did. All right, so on your assignment tonight, which is page 577, this is not the first question, but it can be your first question. You know I don't care if you go out of order, it's fine. So some people had asked me about this question because it's supposed to be easier than what we did, but because I didn't cover one like that, it was harder for some people, okay? So I do that on purpose sometimes. I want you to have to think a little bit without me, but I also don't want you to memorize it wrong, okay? So go ahead and copy it down, and we will start it together. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm at least going to help you with that first step, okay? On all the questions that we covered today, I said, what would you multiply by to make the fractions go away, basically, right? If I were just looking at one piece at a time, what would I multiply by here? 3a, 4a, that's a 6, but yes, that's all right, okay? So I could multiply everything by 3a, 4a, 6, but that's bigger than what I need. So instead, I'm gonna specify that I want to multiply by the LCM. So what I just said wasn't wrong, but it's harder than it needs to be if you do that. So basically what you want to do is pretend that you're trying to get common denominators between all these. A 3, a 4, and a 6, what would your common denominator be? A 12. So if I multiply all those by a 12, my fractions are going to disappear. But I also have to multiply all of them by an a. So just watch what I'm saying, okay? I'm going to multiply everything by 12a. And watch. The a's cancel. What's the 3 and the 12 turn into? A 4, so you get 20. Didn't the fraction disappear? Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. How many times is 4 going to 12? 3 times. The a's cancel, so I'm left with 9. Greater than, 6 goes into 12 2 times, so 10a. Do you see that if you basically find their common denominator and multiply by that, your fractions would disappear? If we had multiplied by, what would that be, 12 and then 60, 72. If we had multiplied everything by 72a squared, it still would have been okay, it just would have been harder math. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you get to the test or the quiz and you're like, ooh, I don't know what to multiply by, you can multiply by everything. It's just then you have an a squared. Well, a squared isn't as easy as what I did, is it? Does that make sense to you? So my way is the best, quickest way, but if you wanted to just multiply everything by the denominators, you could do that too. It's just harder. Okay? So I'm not going to finish that one for you. You'll have to do it on your own. You'll have to do the number line thing and all that, but that's at least a start. Is that okay?